Welcome back. I'm Hope.
I'm Victoria, and we are your favorite expats.
And today we're talking about what happens when you've made the emotional decision to move, but you have to get your stuff there.
The practical side of things, because let's be real, that is a really big part of moving. And it's probably one of the most stressful. Once you've made the big, emotional decision, you kind of go into, oh, shoot, now I actually have to, get my stuff over there. Where does my shit go?
Yeah, I think you're not thinking about it because there's such a big emotional weight and you're talking it through to everyone. And that's not really the part that you're probably focused on. You're thinking, am I going to be happy there? Am I actually going to do it? And I felt like when we decided to go, we popped champagne. It was so exciting. And the next morning I woke up and I was like, we have to get to work. I have so much to do. I have to categorize everything in my house. So I think it's helpful to talk through kind of what we did and any lessons learned that we had too. So.
Yeah. And some tips and tricks, because I definitely, when you were moving, were able to give you some ideas and things that I really liked that I did. Also, we had different experiences. So I think we can definitely talk to that. We both have animals, we both have dogs, but I don't have kids.
They're all part of the family.
Yeah, it's the whole family. Also, you had a house, you owned a house. I did not own a house. So we had stuff, but it was just different. It was a different way of approaching it. And we have friends that did move their furniture. It all depends on your situation. So we'll talk to ours and give you some direction and tips and tricks on what we think would be a good place, some questions to ask yourself, ways to organize yourself, be more project managers as we have our project manager hats on we always do.
Yeah.
We both like to organize. So I think that is helps both of us and supporting each other. And also how to do it while connecting with your friends and having that support system, because it's a lot of work and it's very stressful.
Yeah, I was going to say how to make it fun. It's not fun.
No.
I think it's not fun for anything. But it's how to make it less miserable, I guess.
Yeah.
And also, I think there's something at every part of the experience of being an expat and deciding you're going to make a big move is it lonely? And I felt like if you can't have people physically pack with you, which neither one of us did actually,
No.
Even though we love the idea of a packing party, grab some pizza, grab some wine, ideal state, but we did not get that rom-com version. We did not get that deal from Netflix. So for us, I think it was more, we did pack together. It was just on the phone,
Virtually.
which was fun.
Yeah. And supporting each other in other ways. You sent me your list. Can you please check it over?
Yeah.
And
And
type of a deal.
sometimes too, I think when you're in person with people, you could get derailed versus if they're in your ear, it almost makes the packing mindless, which is nice because we can talk through. I think a good place to start is how do you make the list? And then where do we go from there? So
Yes.
first things first, Victoria, you have a P&P. For those who don't know, we have an industrial engineer in the house, so it's a professional podcast.
Clearly.
So what tool do you recommend to me for sorting my entire life?
Well, I mean, there's different ways you can do it. People it depends on what tool you like. I mean, there's so many out there. I'm going to start listing them. I mean, personally, we used Google, Google Docs, Google Sheets, all of the Googles. And it was easy to just make a folder and keep everything in one place, stay organized. Any documents that had to do with moving or anything, we kept them in one location. And I shared it with Chris so that he was also aware. And then I will share them with you. So let's be real. So you can see what was going on.
Yeah.
And give me advice, or if I had questions, I could be, can you go in this doc and take a look and read it over, which I think is a great way to connect with friends and get advice and have a different connection.
Yeah.
Support in that kind of way, because sometimes you're so stressed, you forget, even though you think you got everything, it's not always the case.
You need your counsel, like we talked about in a previous episode. You need a small council of people who have these organizational skills, who ask good questions, because you are only one set of eyes and you also have emotional eyes. And other people are thinking either that's going to be really hard. When when you had to talk me off a ledge of bringing all of my daughter's stuffed animals.
Yes.
I brought a lot of stuffed animals.
I think that's key, prioritizing.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to bring everything unless you want to spend so much money doing it. It's just not worth it. You're not moving to Mars. You're moving to another country that has a lot of things that you can buy. So I think that's really important. So deciding on where you want to store the information, where you want to get organized is step one. And then next is once you, open it, you figure, okay, I have a lot of things. Like everyone does. Sometimes you realize like, oh my God, how much shit do I actually have?
And how much do I need?
Yeah, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's another part of it when you come here, but we can talk about that later. Like in the moment is really understanding, inventorying your life.
Inventory first.
Yeah, inventory first and understanding like, what do I have? For example, like we didn't at that point own a house, and we actually, because the pandemic, it was weird. We had stopped renting and moved in with Chris's parents as we were trying to figure out what we were doing next. Were we going to buy? Were we going to move? Like, what was the deal? And so we had put a bunch of our like furniture in storage. We had obviously our cars, because in the States you always need a car. So we had a lot of things, and what we did first was we just took like an inventory and we asked ourselves the questions of, okay, are we bringing furniture? Are we going to ship anything? And we immediately decided that that was just not the way we were going to go.
Yeah.
We very much stuck to like clothes and the basics that you can fit in a suitcase, basically.
Yeah. I think one of the most helpful things you told me, because it feels really overwhelming, whether you're in an apartment or a house,
Yeah.
I think doing it room by room, like even if you have a
Yeah.
1-bedroom apartment, right? There's probably like your kitchen area, your living room area, and your bedroom area. And like that alone can feel like a lot because you have a lot of stuff. So I think when you said go each room and categorize it by room and
Yeah.
each header, you know, like, okay, we're just going to focus on the kitchen. And you start to understand what you're willing to part with. And also it's like, you do have to make the decision up front of, are you going to store anything? Because some people can't. Like if you have a place, like a friend's place, or if you're able to pay for a storage unit, what are you really
able to store?
Yeah. And what was interesting for you is you stored some stuff and then that changed now that you've been here for a while.
Yeah. So we sold all our furniture because we decided that's, if we ever move back, we'll just buy new furniture, because like we would not be in the same space. So we sold that, but we did store a lot of our like kitchen stuff and things that we had from previous apartments. And we were lucky because we had Chris's parents' house. So we were able to utilize their basement or their shed. They were willing to let us use some space. So yeah, we stored.
It was your she shed.
Yeah, exactly. It's their little shed. So I had stored some clothes, some like a lot of kitchen stuff, actually, for a few boxes of kitchen stuff. Things that I felt like if we came back, we could utilize again. Plates, like kitchen, the stuff that's expensive
Did
too.
you guys just use cardboard boxes or did you use the airtight containers?
Depending on what it was. For the kitchen stuff, we used cardboard boxes. For anything clothing wise, I recommend like the weather tech, like the ones that you can get them from a container store, you can get them from Amazon, but like the really heavy duty ones. And if it's with clothes, I always put the cedar, like little cedar balls to make sure that your clothes like don't get eaten by moths, or especially sweaters and stuff like that. So I did all of that specifically. So to start from the beginning is exactly what you said. So if you are living in an apartment, if you're living in a house, if you are living like us and like it's, your stuff is kind of everywhere, organize yourselves, do it room by room, do it space by space, and write down everything you have. Like I wouldn't say write down every article of clothing you have, because I feel like that might be excessive. But you can categorize clothing into like winter clothes, summer clothes.
I didn't do that at all. I was just like clothes. I just felt like that was a whole, at least like there's, I guess, different ways of doing it, because I did it as like clothes were going to be a project and I was just going to sit down and do that project, but I didn't put it on my list. But you definitely could do that.
Yeah, you can. It depends on how you want to break it up, and also realizing where you're going and what time of year you're moving, because that really makes a difference. Like moving to Barcelona, the weather is more mild than Boston. So I didn't need 2 winter jackets. Like,
You didn't need to. I definitely brought my Canada Goose to Barcelona.
I brought 1 winter jacket, but I have never worn it. I have only worn it when we've gone like north or somewhere cold, like when we were in Germany or something like that,
Know thyself.
Yes. Hope is always cold. So know yourself. But I think all of this stuff is to note as you're planning. But generally speaking, let's start with a Google Doc. That's what we did, a Google Sheets, and going through an inventory of your life, basically.
Yeah.
And from there, adding a column of priority, like prioritizing, is this something I want to store? Is this something I want to take? Is it something that I want to donate or sell or throw out?
Sometimes like something's really just like, you should have thrown it out. It's probably broken. And you're like, what?
It's the
What are you doing there?
It's time to purge if you haven't purged yet.
It's spring cleaning to another level.
Oh my God. So I think starting there, and then when you're prioritizing and creating that kind of list, it's asking yourself the questions of like, okay, if I'm going to bring this, does it fit in a suitcase or am I shipping it?
Yeah.
Because then there's costs associated with shipping things separately. And we can always, we can write you a list of ways that you can ship things from one country to another. But I know you looked into that. I didn't look into it as much, but I know you really looked into potentially shipping like boxes of things.
Yeah. So plot twist, we're both researchers, but I'm a little bit more, or I have been historically on like social media spaces of like a good Facebook group asking questions. I'm more of a lurker, but like usually somebody has asked your question before. I've also gotten more comfortable. Being an expat actually made me more like on those pages asking questions. It's such a weird thing to like not want to post a question, but I had a reservation about
I'm
it.
worried about it too.
Yeah, but now I'm like, I'm posting everything. I'm like, yeah, why not ask? And people are
Yeah.
more than happy to help. And now I feel like I contribute a lot too. So just a cool plug for social spaces. But yeah, that was one of the things because I think you guys moved at a time where you had stuff and you have dogs. You really just brought mostly clothing, right? Was there anything you can think of that you brought that wasn't
It
clothing?
was all, we brought 2 large suitcases each and 1 small suitcase each. It was shoes and clothes.
And not a hair
Um,
dryer. That's a thing too. Like if you're like,
yes.
oh, I can't live without my hair dryer. Think about the things that you're gonna have to get adapters for. And it's not like packing for a trip because you're not gonna buy a new hair dryer to go on a
Yeah.
vacation for 10 days. But most likely you do need to buy a new hair dryer.
You should not, I mean, if it's not moving from like with the same, outlet,
Yeah.
my recommendation is to just buy all new appliances, even small appliances,
Mhm.
kitchen wise, and also anything to do with replugging something in. It's not worth it. A lot of times the hair dryers, which you probably have done if you've traveled to Europe and tried to like use the adapter and blown out your blow dryer or whatever, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I
And we did that for something. Like we changed the plugs and it was like a process. Like there were certain things like I think we brought over the Google Nest and maybe, oh, we brought over our Nanit. There are certain things I think, especially as parents, that like you feel an attachment to tech wise because you feel comfortable with them and it's like a safety thing. And we were able to find like adapters, but there's so much like into what's the wattage. It's just complicated. So if you want to make your life easier and there's so many things that are difficult about this process, just buy it when you get there. And I think that's part of the like store, sell, donate puzzle. Because, not everybody, including us, could not afford to store everything and then buy everything new. So it really
course.
is like, am I gonna step I need coffee. I need coffee
Yeah.
to survive. Like very much
Yeah.
Lorelai Gilmore, copy, copy, copy. So it's like I'm gonna sell my Nespresso machine so I can get a new one. And even though if I come back, it might be convenient to have it right there, it just doesn't those things
Yeah.
add up. And it can become like a big financial thing, which we could also talk about in future episodes too. Startups.
It's the startup. And I think you realize, and this is just a little tidbit, when we moved here and had literally nothing for the apartment we were renting, because we decided to rent an unfurnished apartment, we realized how like you can live with the basics. Like we just had too much stuff.
Yeah.
So when you start building back up, you realize you don't need as much as you think. And it kind of allows you to live in a more like leaner, efficient way, which I have really appreciated. And Krista and I made decision together to be like, we're only going to buy things if we really need them.
Yeah.
And obviously you need forks, knives, those basics, but like beyond that, we only bought things. And I feel like we still live that way. Like we have everything we need, but we're not buying something because it's a cool gadget for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Because all of that adds up. So I think beyond just inventorying and deciding, it's asking yourself, what do you need to buy when you're there? Like, if I'm selling this, do I need it there? And is it better to sell it instead of store it to save the money? So it depends on how financially, everyone's different. There's no right or wrong, but stable you are in the difference, not stable, but like the money you have to move.
Yeah. What you're working with.
Yeah. What you're working with. Everyone's working with different things.
Yeah.
And also another thing is like, we were lucky that Chris's company was willing to pay for our flights. So we had our flights covered and the actual checking of the bags was covered. So we went ham on that because I was like, okay, fill it to the max. Like, like, I don't care the weight's more. Like they were paying for that. So
give us those oversized sardines.
Bring it up. So we were a little bit more with that. So it depends on your situation. And when we got here, they didn't cover anything else. It was really just the flight, and they gave like some like little stipend or something. But anything helps. To be honest, we were just grateful. So it depends on your situation. So I think the questions you're asking are okay. What do I really need when I get there? And what do I really need if I come back?
Yeah, and like, what are the containers I'm working with to fit it in? Because that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Like what you guys took over. For us, we had 2 adults, 2 kids, 2 dogs. And so I really thought that I was going to have to ship boxes, and that would be like the most economical way to do it. But it ended up being something that I felt like wasn't worth it, because to ship everything, wait for the box to get here, it just made more sense to try to like minimize and pull back a little bit what I thought I would bring, and just do suitcases. We also, which not everybody will be in this position, but if you are lucky enough to have somebody like on the other side where you're going, I was able to store a couple suitcases at your place when Trevor came to do his scouting for school. So that was really helpful because he was able to pack the suitcases, drop them off here, empty them, bring the suitcases back in some cases. So we didn't have to pay again for suitcases, but we have like 6 suitcases now because of like how many times we filled things. And I also think like what one person finds valuable to pack is not going to be what another person finds valuable. So I think through the lens of a parent, that was really hard for me because personally, I didn't have a lot of stuff that I was incredibly attached to. I actually got rid of a lot of my clothes when I moved because I felt like it was very spring cleaning. It felt like, okay, I have this opportunity to sort through all my clothes. What do I really love? What do I not? But my kids' stuff was hard because I was so scared of them being like, where is my
blank?
And like
specifically Charlie.
My daughter. And so I was like, it was one of those things where it's okay for kids to like be sad about something, but it just felt like we were doing this to them. There's like a parental weight of it. And so I remember the 2 things that I feel like stand out are when Trevor came to scout for schools, we were like, oh, we have the opportunity to take 2 bags. What did I put in those bags?
A lot of books because the amount of
books. It was 100, 2 50-pound suitcases, 100 pounds, all children.
It was a choice. Respect. I love how much Charlie loves books. I love how much you love books. I love books. It's great. It's a choice though. But you know what? It's been great. Like, I really think that
no regret.
She has loved them. But again, like you said, everyone values things differently. I don't know if I would have taken that many books. I don't know if I would have taken as many toys either, but I also don't have kids. So I think that as a parent, I'm sure the parents that are listening understand this. We can also talk about Barbie Gate.
Oh my God. This was I still feel guilty about that. So Charlie's favorite toy at the time, and like obviously like kids have a lot of toys, whatever. Her favorite toy was Barbie House. If you're a parent, shout out Barbie House. Thank you, Mattel. But like this girl loved nothing more than playing with Barbie House. So I say to Victoria, I was like, okay, we got to get Barbie House there. It has to go in the suitcase. And I'm looking at Barbie House. And I'm like, how is this going to fit in a suitcase? Like, I don't know how to do this. I can find it. That's something I'm willing to like repurchase.
Important.
Yes. I was like, there's one toy. She can like get over most other toys, but that's going to be the one. So I shipped Barbie House to Victoria, being like, in anticipation of us going there, I need you to confirm that Barbie House is the same, because my daughter is very particular. And I know, like, when I'm reading to her, she'll correct me if I say like in instead of up. Like, she's like, she's on it. So Victoria takes out this whole Barbie House, assembles it. She presses the button and it's speaking English, but it's British English.
It's a British accent. This lady has a British accent.
British Barbie.
And Charlie has only known American Barbie.
Right. And so I was like, you know what? I was like, we love all cultures, but I was like, this cannot stand. I was like, we need to write this wrong. And poor Victoria has to like smush Barbie House back into this
When I tell you, that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I don't even know how they got it in there in the first place.
I was packing my whole life into boxes, but Victoria packing this one Barbie house was also like a reasonably difficult feat. So
it was hard. I spent like a good 30 minutes and I ended up like having to take. Okay, well, they took it back.
Barbie house, Barbie house did make it. Like I brought that, but that was like I had to sacrifice other things
for Barbie
to
house.
bring Barbie house. And to some people that'd be like, you are out of your mind. And
I might have thought that.
Right. Actually, you were like, are you sure? Like, I think she'll be okay. And I was like, I will not be okay.
I literally did say that. I was like, I think she'll be fine.
It's more
like she will survive. And you were like, I don't know. I think you also probably felt bad, like you were moving her out of her space, and that was like something that made her comfortable. I understood.
It's an emotional packing choice rather than a logical one.
Yes.
But it was so funny. Trevor said this to me the other day that he heard. You know how there's like the Marie Kondo of it all, like, does it bring you joy? For parents, I feel like he was like, something that you can think of is, if it got poop on it, would you clean it or would you just throw it out? And I was like,
very good question.
That is an excellent like yardstick by which to measure what do I.
My instinct is throw it all out. But like, I understand.
Check back in a few years, see how you feel about it.
With no kids at the moment, I feel like poop trash.
Yeah, poop trash. Yeah, that'll change. But I wish I hadn't done that at the time, because I think it would have slightly changed how I thought about things. But yeah, I think for the most part, it's trying to sort out what do you feel like you need, and then what's going to bring you joy, because it's going to be a big thing. You're going to get to maybe, for both of us, actually, it was an empty apartment, which is funny because on the other hand, you were renting and then you moved in with Chris's parents. I rented my house or am renting my house. So yeah, it's a bit different. And I rented it furnished, which is really weird because like when you're talking about packing all your shit up, to leave a lot of your stuff feels like
weird.
Yeah, it's almost like psychologically you don't feel like you're moving because your house is still in order. You don't have that like moment of looking around and everything is blank. So that was like a weird thing as well. But yeah, it's thinking about when you get to a place, you have nothing there, what is going to make you feel like you're in a good spot emotionally and realistically.
Yeah, it's an interesting feeling because like when you're leaving something behind too, you're leaving your house kind of like you said, exactly as it is. Like for us, we didn't have like specifically a home. We were leaving for his parents' house, but like we would leave his parents' house other times. Like it wasn't as big of a change. And I also think so a couple things when it comes to packing, something I very much recommend, and just a quick like tip, vacuum sealed bags are a game changer. That is how I packed everything. And if you're okay, it does go overweight. So you definitely should get one of those like luggage weighing like things you hold.
Oh yeah, pro tip. And just on Amazon, they're like $8. Just
super
like
cheap.
The luggage scale is so nice.
The luggage scale, that's the word. That's the word. We got it. Yeah, you know this thing. If you can see me moving my hands, like I talk only with my hands. But a luggage scale and vacuum seal bags, they were a lifesaver, and we've used them a lot, even traveling. Just as like a side note, traveling within Europe, like if we want to just pack a carry-on and like share a carry-on and, you know, be really like lean with our packing for a long weekend, because now they charge you for everything on airplanes, like you like breathe funny and they're like, oh, money. So we try to like, you know, sometimes only do one carry-on or whatever. Vacuum sealed bags have like been amazing.
We were able to bring so many stuffed animals because of your vacuum sealed bags. Like I also had this idea that if anyone has ever seen like those huge, like Aveo Schwartz style, like puppies that were in my daughter's room, and I was like, I'm going to fit it I'm going to vacuum seal it. I watched a TikTok about it. I was like, I'm ready. It didn't come. Like, yeah, I was that. I pulled back. There are things that you think you will bring and you will not bring them. But I got like 30 stuffed animals into one of those bags, like one of the extra large ones. And I mean, still big, but like so much smaller. It's amazing.
They're wonderful. So pro tip, get those vacuum seal bags. And they work like in general. We still use them and it's been 4 years. Like we use them for things like in our apartment because like we did move to Spain, to Europe. Things are smaller here. Like apartments are smaller, spaces are smaller. So I love a good organization. So organizing when you're doing your closet, like if you have extra pillows or you have an extra duvet for guests, we've vacuum seal them and put them away. And it's
Yeah.
been really, really helpful. So they're useful even after you move here or here, wherever you move, they're still useful. So vacuum seal bottles is a really big thing. Another thing to think about, which I had not thought about, and it's definitely a lesson learned. When we did get here, we ended up having to get a hotel because we didn't have an apartment ready. So we were like looking for apartments and staying in a hotel. And the hotels here are a bit smaller than the ones in the US, which we did know, but it's not something you're thinking about
Right.
when you're packing and stressed and all of that. So when we got here, we each had 2 big suitcases and 2 small ones, and the room did not fit the number of suitcases we had. So they were like, "Oh, wait, that's not a small person." No, we're not. Both of us aren't. So we were looking at each other, and the front desk people were like, "Okay, like, you can leave them here." I have no idea what's in these. Like, I know that these 2 are mine and these are yours, but I don't know what's in. Like, what do I need? So I recommend, if you are going to do kind of like what we did, and you each have, different suitcases, pack one with a little bit of everything, and then pack another with just like things you don't need in the moment, because you never know what situation you're in that you can't open all of them at the same time. Because I don't know if you're more spontaneous like we are. We kind of just we didn't actually. It's funny because I'm pretty organized, but there's a lot of it that we did have to go a little bit more on the whim,
It was like
because
forced flexibility.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm okay with that. I was really okay with it. It's different, I think, because you had kids, you had to be a little more planning. Well, it depends. It depends on the person. But I think for us, we were willing to be a little more flexible when we got here. But it's not something we had thought of. And I would recommend having a little bit more of a plan
Yeah.
with one of your suitcases at least. Or if something gets lost
Yeah.
with like luggage and all of that, which has happened.
That was my
before.
worst fear throughout this experience. I was like, we need the Apple AirTags. Like, we need them, because I was so afraid. Again, all my stuff, I was like, it's fine. It can go away. I was like, the toys go, we're all going down. It's like,
The difference of like parenting, I think that's like the biggest difference is like whoever you are, depending on your situation. I'm sure when you're a parent, you're thinking of your kids more than yourself. And I think for us, we were very more relaxed because it was ourselves. And we're like, well, we'll figure it out. Like, we're making this choice. We'll be okay with whatever happens. We'll figure it out.
even that stuff, though, I do think, like, at least my version of parenting, everybody parents differently. Like, I did feel like you cling to certain things. It's almost like a comfort. Even the eating mats that you have, you're like, well, they love these eating mats. And it's like, you don't need the eating mats. Did I bring the eating mats? Absolutely did. But there are certain things that you really don't need.
Yeah.
And I think being here, that is definitely one of the ones that I don't know that I would have needed to pack all of that. But I will say one thing that was really interesting was figuring out a stroller, particularly if you're moving from the US to Europe. I feel like the US, bigger is better. Like, we love our wagons. Like, we love a
Everything.
large child vehicle.
Like everything large. Like, it's not just the children's stuff.
Right. So I was like, okay, having been to Europe, like, what are we going to do in terms of our stroller? So we were in the market for a double stroller anyway, but we realized that we would have to figure out not only the elevator, because we didn't have an elevator in our house, obviously. So the elevator for our apartment building, it had to fit in there. And then also aisles, like even going through stores, we wanted to make sure, and sidewalks, we wanted to make sure we were navigating our new home in a way that made sense. And to bring such a big item like a stroller and then have it not fit was like absolutely terrible to me. So that's one of those ways where, like, a Facebook group, I had combed through those and seen, okay, once you know where you're living, I had seen what do people recommend for the city. And there were so many different recommendations, and we ended up buying one based on the recommendations for the city, which was so nice. We love it. But yeah, I think that's like one of the things too. You might be attached to something, but it may not fit in your new life. So make sure there's like a little bit of research that goes into, practically speaking, does it even make sense to bring this?
Wherever you decide to move, there are tons of Facebook groups, especially in big cities when there's people moving, that you can join.
Yeah.
And just like search it because of you, honestly, because I like never, even though I joined them when I moved here, I was not as much of a lurker as you are. I did a lot of my own research, but not particularly in Facebook groups, but I have recognized the value of them after you've shown it to me. And I think it's great. People are willing to be helpful. And like thinking about it, like I've responded to people now because I'm willing to be helpful too.
Yeah.
And another aspect, I guess, is like obviously you're flying with your children and all that. For us, like you can't leave your kids behind and go and look for things and come back. But what we ended up doing with our animals, because I seen a lot of questions on, and there's so many different ways to do this online of how to bring them over. And our dogs are a bit bigger than a little too big for being in the cabin with us. So we ended up coming here, getting settled, and then going back and bringing them back with us when we had an apartment. And we were lucky to have Chris's parents willing to watch them for a couple months. That was the one thing we did go back for. And we ended up obviously putting them in the under, I guess, cargo area. Yeah, I mean, that was an experience. I think really because it was during COVID, it was a really tough time for us to move for many reasons. A lot of funny stories, maybe another time, getting turned away from the airport. The amount of times that I kept coming back and they got to the point where they're like, you're not leaving.
It was all the time. It's like, I kept being like, good luck. I love you. I'm going to miss you so much. And you're like, I'm still here.
Yeah. I'm back home. I'm back in their home. And the Jew is just like, oh, okay. Are you leaving? And I'm like, I don't know. Am I leaving? Unclear. Eventually we did leave.
Yes.
But my point is that depending on your, how much you're willing to spend, there's different ways to get your dogs or animals over.
And people have recommendations too. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. You guys went through Germany as a connection because it's supposed to be a good dog airport.
Lufthansa has a good connection. But because we looked at a lot, also we were unfortunate during COVID, there were just less flights options. Like now it's way better. They have better connections. Like on the way back, the dogs had like an 8-hour layover in Germany, which we really didn't like. But we purposely picked the Lufthansa flight because we knew that airport was known to be good and treat dogs really well. Something to think about, which I didn't really think about that much, is when we did bring our dogs over and they were here the first few days, because one of them doesn't care. She's like, sure, like whatever. I'm happy.
Queen Ellie.
Put me. Yeah. Ellie is like Queen Bee, does not care about anything. Happy to be wherever you put her, you feed her, you love her. She just wants to be with you. Our other dog is a nervous Nelly. Like Miko is just scared of like his own shadow. And it took him, I want to say almost 24 hours, more than 24 hours, like to pee outside. I was so nervous. Both Chris and I kept walking him like multiple times a day, like way more than like you would normally need to walk a dog, just because he didn't even go inside. He just wasn't going to the bathroom. And we tried quiet places. We would take him into but we tried everything. Eventually, obviously, he peed an animal. I was nervous.
Moral of the story: he doesn't pee in Europe anymore.
He just doesn't pee at all. Obviously, he's totally fine now. I've been here 4 years. He's a happy dog, happy to live here. But it took him time. So give your animals, just like people, just like kids, like time to adjust, which I don't think I expected as much.
Yeah.
It took him a minute with that. And then also jet lag is really funny with animals. Nico and Ellie were getting up in the middle of the night and playing with their toys. I remember we were sleeping. All of a sudden, I just hear like squeak, squeak, squeak in the living room. And they always sleep with us. I kind of get up at like 3 a.m. And I go, Chris, what is that? And he goes and gets Nico from the living room, being like, Nico, it's still time to sleep.
It's still time to sleep. That's so sweet. Little New England puns.
That was so funny. I was like, okay, I guess dogs can have jet lag too. So all these like funny little nuances that I think with animals, like obviously the logistics of bringing them is stressful. You know, you have to get them checked out, you know.
Yeah, so that's the thing too. So we also have 2 big Goldmans, and so they were obviously not fitting in their own seats, although I did consider dressing them up as people, being like, this is my child. What do you mean they look like a dog? That's so rude. But I just couldn't handle, I had a lot of anxiety about putting them under the plane, and we talked about this for a long time because it's really not an easy thing to do. Like, you don't have a lot of options. And I think a lot of people, including you, would prefer to just like take them with you on the plane, but it's just like really not an option right now.
We tried.
When both of us actually, because it's really new, came over, Bark Air. What do they do? Bark Box? Is that like what they're originally?
I think so, yeah.
The founder of that created an airline specifically to take your dogs because he was like, I envision a future where everyone can travel with their dogs. It's so great.
Love that future.
It's still, it's $1 bajillion.
Yeah.
And so I think that for us, I started looking, again, Facebook looker, into these pet charter groups. And so there's a group, one in particular, that's like very popular. And it basically connects people looking to fly from different places with their pets. And it's a shared charter. So you basically get like maybe 10 families together
Yeah.
and you get a charter with your dogs. And it's like very luxurious, more luxurious than, you know what? If anyone deserves it, I would correct myself. It is dogs. Dogs deserve
They do deserve
the luxury of it.
Yes.
But it's funny because
so
it
kind.
does seem like this thing that like, oh, it seems like, you know, celebrity, whatever thing that's like what
Yeah.
you think about. And we ended up doing a pet charter because that's just what we ended up choosing. And it's still a lot of logistics to coordinate. So like the first thing you have to do, whether you're doing a charter or you're putting them in cargo, or if you have a service animal, they're in the cabin with you, you have to bring them to a USDA certified vet. And you have to get a bunch of paperwork done. And there's a very specific turnaround window. And so even for that, like I had connected with people in that group to figure out where to bring them because different vets will charge you. Like one vet quoted me double a different vet for that paperwork. So there's like a stressful piece of that with just getting them ready. And then,
and not all vets do it because you have to do the same also when you generally fly. Like even for us, when we put them in cargo, same thing, same
US
time frames, all of that is still the same. So just
it's all the same. You don't
all
have to
the
like
same.
dive it because you're doing it a fancy way.
No. It's like, it's also depends on the country you're going to. I think that's really, really big thing to note is the country you're actually going to live in have different restrictions, different like regulations. So you have to make sure you look at, like we looked at Spain, like what is Spain? Like I know some countries like the UK, there's a 2-week, I think, the isolation period for animals when they come no matter what. So it's important to look at that. So as a side note, definitely make sure where you're ending up, you've looked at the regulations and the asks for that.
Yeah. And so it was interesting. So we basically lived in Massachusetts. We came here just like the human people. And then our friend watched the pups. And then my husband Trevor went back to go get them, drove them to New Jersey where the flight was leaving from. That flight went to Germany where he met your husband, Chris, and they did an international road trip with the dogs to Barcelona. So like very complicated logistically. But I think the most stressful piece of it, because packing up was a lot and it takes a lot of time, but the dog piece of it was very stressful because they don't make it easy. And it's also, I mean, you guys had this similar experience of like, you're not usually all going over on your first flight together. You're usually coming back for them just because even like when you set yourself up, you guys didn't have an apartment. What were you going to do? Bring them to a hotel? Like not knowing.
Complicated.
Yeah. It just doesn't make sense. So I would say like find support where you can with people who've done it because like you do not need to reinvent the wheel on this. You want to have other people who've done it in whatever way that you're going to do it and get advice from them.
And figure out what makes sense. Like, again, you also want them to be comfortable. I mean, just like your kids, you want to be comfortable. I mean, they're kids too.
Yeah.
My babies are my babies, my fur babies, as we all say. They're my children. So it depends on how you think of it. I always have this like conversation with my cousin. She always is like, they're my roommates. And I was like, okay, but they're my babies. So I think
I do that too, because I think of them as like my children, but then I don't think of them as my children's siblings. I think of them as their puppies and they are like their babies. Like it's just a weird, I don't know.
That's a very good point. I didn't even think about that.
But yeah, but it's also like there's obviously a lot of privilege associated with like doing it the way that we did it. But I will say like all of moving in general, when you're figuring out what to take, what not to take, like you have to make sacrifices wherever. So if you're going to bring certain things, if you're going to bring more of your stuff, you're going to pay more money to bring it. You know what I mean? And like, there are certain things too that like are really valuable to you that it might cost more to replace in Europe. Like there were some toys, it was also a financial decision because a lot of the toys available in the US are much more expensive here. I don't know why. Someone who knows more about supply chain can tell me. But it's on me.
Yes.
But that was part of my calculus because I was like, do I want to, it seems ridiculous to bring all these toys. But then again, and the books, I was like, how much money am I going to have to spend
to replace them?
Yeah, exactly. So it is like a little bit of a
give and take.
Yeah. If you're married to somebody who does finance, that's the ideal state. Or you are married to someone who's married to someone who does finance, that's the ideal.
Exactly. If you haven't caught on, Chris is in finance.
Yes.
For a company. He works a company and works in finance.
He works for our company.
Yes.
That's us.
No.
Just when we say, Chris, how much would this be?
What are you doing this?
His other job.
Yes, we are his other job. And he knows. Anyway, so yeah, so I think that the biggest thing is prioritizing, figuring out what you're willing to spend your money on, coming up with like a plan, thinking it through. It feels daunting.
Yeah.
But if you do it in segments, I think whenever I feel very overwhelmed with like the big picture, I stop.
Yeah.
And I break it into segments because the whole thing is stressful, but bits of it are doable, and making that to-do list, understanding what you have, what you want to sell, like we said, what you want to donate or what you want to keep and take with you. All of that is a starting point. Then you start asking yourself the practical questions, like you were saying, like financially, does this make sense? How much can I spend on moving and starting my life there? Am I getting any money from a job? All of these questions. Then there's schools for kids. Then there's the animal piece if you have animals. If you don't have any of that and you're just like, I'm going to move by myself, hey, even easier. If you're coming alone and you're looking for an apartment to share, a roommate situation, if you're looking just to rent, all this stuff is different in every city.
Yeah.
So we can really only speak to Barcelona because that's our experience. But there are so many resources out there per city in general on Instagram, on it. Utilize them.
And leave yourself time. Make the decision that you're going. Celebrate. Hopefully it's exciting. Celebrate it for sure. Yeah. And then make a plan. Like, I think that was the big thing for me. I didn't want to feel stressed last minute and I wanted to enjoy. I think there's an emotional piece of it. I think this is a good way to kind of like wrap up the conversation about what you're going to pack. Like, you're going to get to a point where most of your stuff that you're using is in a box. You've packed your whole life.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to enjoy those last few days just in your home and celebrate that and experience that fully without feeling like, oh my God, where's my toothbrush? You just want to set yourself up for success. So I think leaving yourself with a plan, doing it in a manageable way that it doesn't make you miserable. And then I also think like figure out that division of labor that makes sense for you. So if you're by yourself, hopefully you're still not doing it alone. Like, hopefully you have people in your life, whether it's friends, family, whatever, who are helping you like physically with that piece of it. But also if you're moving with a partner, like negotiate that up front. Cause I think it's a stressful time in general. And you want to make sure, like for me personally, I was happy to like pack most of the boxes because I could call a friend, have a glass of wine, wrap things up. And then my husband would either like take the box, put it in the attic or put it in the basement. He basically was doing like Django with boxes in our houses. And then he would actually like physically pack the suitcase. And that's what worked for us, but that's not what works for everyone. You just want to do it in a way that brings you as much peace as you can to a particularly stressful time.
Do it together. Like you said, if you are with a partner, if you are with your friends or family, delegate.
Yeah.
But if you're with a partner, don't necessarily having to delegate. Work on the plan together.
Yeah.
Come up with it together. Split the tasks together. It's not one of your responsibility.
A lot of mental load. That's a whole other episode. Mental load of
I'm
moving.
not going down that path.
Not today. Can't handle it today.
Not today. But it is a big topic. It is important to split the tasks. And I think that's what Chris and I did as well. There's certain things I'm better at physically organizing things in the suitcases, but I didn't actually take any of his stuff out. I was like, you need to go through your things and that's your responsibility. So we each took care of our own stuff, but I help with the physically organizing things in the suitcases and stuff because it's
a special skill. I've never seen anybody do it like you do it.
I like to organize, so I'm totally okay with it too. It's just more efficient.
Yeah.
Anyway, so like we said, there's a lot of emotional parts to it that we've talked about. We're going to talk more about, but the practical bit, get organized. And
organize, get connected. And hopefully we've given some practical tips. And also you can find us basically on any kind of social media platform. But I think something in particular that I would love to see is if our Facebook group, hopefully people can connect on there and share their experiences, whether it's like, hey, I'm moving to the city. Are there other people there who can kind of help you out? Or just sharing your experiences? Because again, this is our experience. we've met other expats, we've, learned lessons from them,
Yeah.
but tell us what you think too, because it's helpful for us to know.
Yeah, of course. And we'll try to add also some of the things that we're talking about. Like if you are coming from the US, or I'll add links even in Spain from Amazon and stuff that have been really helpful with like actually packing
Yeah.
logistically, because sometimes it just is.
Move over, Marie Kondo.
Yes.
Victoria's here.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're enjoying the show, we'd love if you consider subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review. And for more content, you can find us on our YouTube channel or on socials like TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook at either Your Favorite Exes or Your Favorite Expats. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to tell us your thoughts in the comments, DM us, or shoot us an email at yourfavoriteexpats@gmail.com.